It seems like everyone nowadays loves true crime. Everywhere you look, there's another gruesome murder case being explained in great detail. From movies, to documentaries, to books, to even 90-part series on Instagram Reels. The appeal makes sense to me. I mean, I even have a few videos on this channel that dip into the true crime territory. It allows the average person a glimpse into the dark, twisted parts of our world, without jeopardizing their safety. To those who aren't a fan of this type of content, the people who do like it can kind of seem crazy, but not everyone who likes true crime are murderers themselves. A lot of times, people watch these documentaries to educate themselves on how to stay safe, which makes more sense when majority of the consumers of this content tend to be women. Though there are some women who go beyond interest and dive straight into obsession with true crime. So much so that they start relationships with criminals. Today, we'll be talking about the psychological phenomenon Hybristophilia. Hybristophilia, also known as Bonnie and Clyde syndrome, refers to a predatory type paraphilia where a person is sexually or romantically attracted to individuals who have committed crimes, especially violent or outrageous ones. These crimes usually involve harming others, like armed robbery, rape, and murder. This term was coined by the sexologist Dr. John Money in 1986. There are two types of hybristophiles, passive and aggressive. Passive hybristophiles are individuals who are attracted to criminals but do not wish to participate in the crime themselves. They are usually known as the prison groupies or prison hoppers. They might write letters and/or visit and flirt with the inmates. They like to admire from a distance. They believe that their criminal lover would never harm them, and that they alone can only understand the criminal. They may also feel special because of all the attention that they are getting from the criminal. Aggressive hybristophiles are individuals who love criminals and actively help or encourage the criminal's wrongdoings. These women aid their criminal boyfriends by luring victims and covering up crimes. They love the thrill and fantasy of committing crimes as a couple. So what makes these women fall in love with criminals? There isn't exactly one definitive answer, but there are some theories. It's important to note that most hybristophiles are not diagnosed psychotic or disordered in a clinical sense. They usually function normal in society, aside from their extreme romantic interests. The first theory has to do with the person's early experiences and attachments. Some individuals who develop attractions to criminals have histories of abuse or neglect, which has a chance of influencing their adult romantic preferences. Often, victims of abuse or neglect can be insecure and have low self-esteem, which would make it easier for someone to manipulate and take advantage of them. These women would most likely ignore any red flags that these criminals are flying about. David Webb, a psychology writer, says that these women report feeling safer with a partner who is behind bars, since the man's incarceration means he cannot directly harm them. The women retain a sense of control in the relationship. Criminals seem like a safe option for these women, since they are stuck somewhere and cannot harm them in any way. The second theory is that certain personality types would be more likely to become hybristophiles than others. Those with dependent or empathetic personalities are usually drawn to the rescue fantasy. They think that they can save the criminal from prison and their bad behavior. Those who tend to idolize or are a little delusional about relationships may make their own ideal persona for the criminal instead of actually getting to know their real personality. And those aggressive thrill seekers usually want a violent partner to help let out their aggressive tendencies.
I just had this thing to be with somebody incarcerated. Like, I don't know, I liked bad boys, okay?
The third theory is psychosexual development and conditioning. The bad boy trope is deeply rooted in American culture and media. Classic conditioning can link fear and the taboo with arousal, similar to the thrill of a roller coaster. The fear turns into dopamine when the person learns that they are safe despite the danger. This is known as the excitation transfer. So being in the same courtroom as a criminal could bring fear, but in a controlled environment, that fear may become titillating rather than threatening. This is why some refer to notorious killers as charming or attractive during trials. The last theory is the evolutionary psychology theory. At a primal level, a violent criminal could be seen as someone with strength, dominance, and fearless genes. Some women might want to pass those traits off to their children. Along with those traits, the criminal's fame also makes them desirable mates. Their fame isn't positive, but fame is fame. Being well known and strong attracts, at least at a primal level, some of these women. There's been a huge shift of focus to crime and criminals in our media and culture. TV shows, movies, books, and more tell stories of these horrible people and the terrible acts that they committed. Some of them explain them for educational purposes, while others start that way but end up romanticizing them instead. Being a fan of a certain show or movie doesn't necessarily mean that you're a hybristophile, but there are some people who go further than just the plotline.
I always watched like crime documentaries. I always watched like 911. So like I was always into that kind of stuff.
Some fans of these shows will go on to become fans of the actual criminals. And with the help of the internet, they start fan pages and profiles for these criminals. These then become safe spaces for like-minded people to gush over their favorite murderers. Then, a fandom is born. These fandoms have tendency to minimize the seriousness of these crimes to any outsiders who aren't aware of what actually happened. Social media platforms are primarily where these fandoms thrive. Through thirst traps and the comment sections, these fans glorify these killers with no remorse for the victims and everyone involved.
Oh my god, they said honestly rip to those who lost their lives.
Some individuals online experience the halo effect, a cognitive bias where an overall impression of a person, brand, or product influences feelings and thoughts about specific unrelated traits. Basically, this person's hot, so they can't be guilty. A few may even experience the actor-offender transference, a psychological phenomenon where attraction or empathy for the actor portraying a criminal in media is transferred to the real-life offender, so their mind blends the two individuals together. There are also a handful of women who confuse the criminal's violent behavior with protection and loyalty. They believe that the criminal would never harm them, and that their brutal acts are those of passion. With all this in mind, some might ask why our media still covers these criminals and their fans. As Webb puts it, mass media acts as a double-edged sword. It educates the public about crime, but it can also inadvertently seduce a segment of the public into a disturbing form of admiration. To inform or not to inform, hybristophiles will still exist, so we might as well educate those we can. Hybristophilia itself is legal, though it may feel morally wrong. Prisoners can harm and take advantage of a hybristophilic individual in multiple ways. However, it is not illegal for those people to be in a relationship. The government cannot decide who dates who. But at the same time, these people aren't in the right mindset to consent to having a relationship with these inmates. Then again, thoughts and feelings are not a crime. But if the hybristophile helps commit the crime with the criminal lover, then they'll have to face their consequences. Hybristophilia can be illegal if it is between a prison guard or a counselor and an inmate, since then it turns into sexual misconduct. But there isn't anything illegal about a criminal marrying one of their fans, which has happened more than once.
The defense called only one witness, Carol Boone. Acting as his own lawyer, Bundy questioned her about his character. She said he's a kind, warm, patient man, a very positive part of her life.
Will you marry me? And I do hereby marry you.
Ramirez, the satanic serial killer known as the Night Stalker, will marry Doreen Leoy, a devout Catholic virgin and freelance magazine editor from San Rafael. The two will wed in a civil ceremony at San Quentin, where Ramirez awaits his death sentence for raping and killing 13 people in Los Angeles in the 1980s.
Here she is, 25-year-old Star. These pictures posted to fan website MansonDirect.com. That name, by the way, Star, Manson thought that up himself. She has been seeing Manson, now 79, ever since she was 19. The news today, she says they plan to marry.
There isn't a standardized treatment for hybristophilia. Since it isn't officially recognized as a disorder, the psychiatric community still debates about this. Therapy can help. Therapists will usually use approaches for other atypical sexual interests or for relationship-oriented problems such as cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, which attempts to break the link between danger and arousal by cognitive reframing and gradual exposure to healthy relationship dynamics. Psychoeducation, which is educating the individual on the psychological traits that psychopathologically, say that 3 times fast, inclined criminals use to lure and exploit, like charm and love bombing. Orgasmic reconditioning, which is having their patient masturbate to their usual fantasies and then right before orgasm, switch to a more appropriate fantasies. Aversion therapy, which is pairing thoughts of the criminal with an unpleasant stimulus, such as a bad smell or a snap of a rubber band. Imaginal exposure with response prevention, which is when the client visualizes the criminal lover and then is guided to think those thoughts and not get excited. Group therapy, addressing other issues that have led to this point, and medication could also help hybristophilic individuals. Overall, though, it is very difficult to treat someone with hybristophilia since most times they don't want to change. So that's why some people fall in love with criminals. Leave your thoughts in the comments below and don't forget to like this video. Also click that subscribe button for more strange and unusual content, and thank you for watching.